I was at Alex Gray's Chapel of Sacred Mirrors in upstate New York, Wappinger Falls, as a volunteer. And I walked into the main room where in their like mansion, Alex and Allison Gray's mansion type building. It's beautiful in there. There's so much great, amazing artwork and spiritual symbols. Like there's this random Egyptian ankh sitting, and there's like bookshelves everywhere with all these amazing um, esoteric books and such. And so when I walked into the room, there was a man, and his name was Rafael Bejarano, which I later learned his name, and he had such a strong presence that I immediately was like, oh, okay, who is this man? And it was just me and the volunteers before an event that for like a special group of people who bought special tickets. Uh, Only they were going to see the opening ceremony, and then the doors would open to the main crowd later. So I'm in there as a volunteer, and you know, uh, I I did not know anything about the event. I did not know there was going to be a shaman there. I didn't know anything about it. And Raphael, he was a towering figure. I'm not particularly tall, and he was. And he was just like emanating this light and power. And I was like, who is this person? And essentially, he was an indigenous. He played indigenous instruments such as the didgeridoo, something called a huwaka, which is kind of like an ocarina. And he said to us, "Oh, so you guys want a little taste before we go into the ceremony?" And he played a flute, like this huwaka, in front of like one of the volunteers' face, and we were kind of in like a half circle. And he goes to one of the people, and he's playing the flute in their face, and he moves on to the next person, and then he moves on to me, and the flute is right here in my face. You can see his eyes behind it, like this, and he's playing the huwaka, and you know, um, it turned into what is commonly seen as a picture of a gray. It was different. It's those aliens with the gray skin and the big black almond eyes and all that. That thing. He was playing the flute in my face, and it turned into that. And it was speaking like a mechanical, garbled language. And I said to it, I was like, I couldn't think of anything to say other than the power of Christ compels you. And then he just moved on to the next person. As soon as I finished that sentence, whew, wow, okay, I'm really talking about this story. But anyway, I ended up later on, you know, well, as he was doing that ceremony, the opening ceremony, he started handing out CDs to all the volunteers before we had to depart. And he gave us one of his CDs to everybody, every one of the volunteers except for me. And I was like it was, I felt slighted. I was already disoriented because there was a ton of stuff going on for me that I still don't quite understand. So he, so it was like I got the cold shoulder in a sense. But little did I know is that I was actually kind of privileged, in more of a privileged position than anybody else. And he was going throughout the entire mansion all night with a didgeridoo, like for like 2 hours straight. And then I happened to catch him on the way By the way, when I say he was going through the didgeridoo, he wasn't just playing the didgeridoo. He would like aim it at people's heart chakras and then like go up and down or like focus on like a specific area point that he was like intuitively picking up that this person needed healing or energy work or whatever. And it was like he was just nonstop. And you have to think of the physical labor of like holding it up, your breath, your circular breathing the whole time. So it was very like he was very much like a warrior shaman and like just endless energy. And as the night kind of came to a close, I happened to be in the foyer as he was leaving out the building to just leave. He was done with the whole thing, and I happened to be there, and I just kind of meekly like looked at him, and I was like, "Do you have any advice?" And he said, "Okay, yeah, I do. I will. I'll. I'd like to spend more time on it though. I will meet you here tomorrow morning at such and such a time." I think it was around 9:30 a.m., but he gave an exact time, which I found at the time interesting because I was like, oh, but he should be in flow, and because I was too out there, and which is so he concretized it. He said, "This specific time, we're meeting at this specific time." So I ended up going to sleep after the crowd filtered out and everybody left and it was just me and the volunteers. I ended up sleeping on the grounds with two other volunteers. One of them was a woman. I will not say her name. I could, but whatever. And then another dude and who happened to play a similar guitar style as I did. And she and I were like cuddling in a way, and like she would take a piece of moldavite, which is a stone formed by a meteor crashing into the earth. It's found in Czechoslovakia. I'm pretty sure that's where the locality where it's found. And she would take the moldavite and she would put it into my hands. And every time she put it in my hand, I would close my fist around it, and I would be seeing these like intense dark green visions. It's a dark green stone too, and like intense visions. And then she would take it back, and the visions would go away, and then she would later hand it to me again. People talk about programming crystals. I don't do that. I don't know anything about that. If you want to hear my take on why I think that physically works, I could explain that in another video. But anyway, so that was the night, and I ended up finally going to sleep, and I woke up, and then I saw Rafael Bejarano, this shaman man, and we ended up going out back on the porch. It's like a portico, I guess. It's like a covered porch. And I was talking to him about really personal stuff. And I was like, I just can't get this out of my way. It's like kind of like an intrusive thought kind of thing. And he said a number of things to me that gave me insight that he could kind of see into my being. But anyway, I'm not going to try to sell you on that. It's whatever. So he ended up taking my hand, and he's like, "I'm doing this to feel your nervous system," which I have been able to do for a short period of time. I was able to do that. I was able to hold people's hands and feel their nervous system, which is fucking beautiful. It's a really beautiful experience. But I wasn't able to feel his at the time, and he's holding my hand, and he's talking to me, and at one point he said something that made me think that I was going to be shamanically initiated in that very moment, and I had a specific way of that initiation happening. Some shamans are reported when they go through initiation, they end up being like literally dismembered by spirit. Like the spirit animals just come and just like descend upon them and just like rip them to shreds, and then they get put back together, and then they're like reborn, and so I was like oh no, I'm afraid. And he mocks about people's fears. Like he was like, we're all kind of fearful, and that gives us a chance to be brave. And he actually had a rubber chicken that he would just like squeeze, and he's like, this is my spirit animal, it's chicken shit. He had a sense of humor. And so I was like writhing with eyes closed, like, no, I'm resisting this change and I'm afraid of it. And he ended up putting his hand on my sternum, and went like this. And it's like under the surface of my conscious awareness, he told me a joke. And I burst out laughing. Like, I was like, oh, how can you do that? Another thing, quick, before I end this video, because it's getting lengthy. He, at one point, his face was literally changing into these, like, ugly beings. Like, I would call them demonic, or asauric, if you want to, whatever. So I was looking at those things in his face, and he said, every time you see those, I want you to say, those motherfuckers. And I said, what are they? And he said, they're nothing. And I will end on a quote from this book called Bhakti Shakti by a woman named Pranada Kantois. And she said that the power that darkness has over light is no power at all. Namaskar. Namaste. See you later.